Hey, what's going on? Thank you for joining me today here on USB Unaffiliated Sports Broadcasting. Pretty much just unaffiliated sports at this point. I haven't quite got the broadcasting part going just yet. Hey, so again, thank you for joining me. Apologies for the delays. I've been feeling kind of under the weather. So let's get into it. We've got our Week 7 recap for the Tooele County schools of Grantsville, Tooele High School, and Stansbury High School. We're going to go over their games from this last week and then look into their matchups coming up this week for Week 8. But Week 7 recap, let's kind of get into that. So the Grantsville Cowboys, they took on the Ogden Tigers. That was their homecoming game. Pretty good game. At least I thought it was going to be a better game, but it was a pretty good game all around. That score ended up being Grantsville taking the win 17-0 over the Ogden Tigers. I know I don't think I ever got it up because there were some technical difficulties, but I thought it was going to be a pretty good game because Ogden came in undefeated on the season, and they seem to be doing some pretty good things. And I had not had the chance to really see them play, and now I kind of I think I kind of understand. So, a little bit of the recap. It was a rough game for the Grantsville Cowboys. Offense in particular, with 0 touchdowns on the day, so they didn't have anything on the ground or the air. Now they did have 2 touchdowns that were called back for penalties. There was a lot of that, a lot of shooting themselves in the foot. They just couldn't really see when they needed it. It was almost like as soon as they hit the 30-yard line, it just went flat. And when they needed it, they had some self-induced problems. But it wasn't the best performance either for the quarterback, Van Vliet. He was only 37% on the night. I'll get into his stats in a second. And running back Jaden Atkinson, he left the game a little early with an injury. Not really sure where he's at. From what I understand, it was something with his upper body. I could be wrong about that though. But the real MVP of that game was the kicker for the Cowboys, number 4 Brent Nicker and Nick Bacher. I feel like I gotta exaggerate that, all right? Nick Erbacher. Okay, he was 5 for 5 on field goal attempts, with his longest being 45 yards. So all their points minus safety. They did get a safety in that game as well. It was from the field goal kicker. So great job to that young man. He's the real MVP of that game in my opinion. And number 8, Jordan Fossen, did a phenomenal job in coverage. He had 2 interceptions on the night for 70 yards return, and it really kind of crippled any momentum that the Tigers had kind of moving forward. So good job to the defense for keeping them at 0. And phenomenal job by the kicker, number 4. I'm already congested enough. I'm not gonna say that. For Ogden, number 5, Harvey. He came into this game as the leading receiver threat for the Tigers, and that's who I thought was really gonna have a big game coming into this. But after seeing the play, they definitely utilized his speed. He's a quick kid. He's very fast. And it looks like they just kind of let him hit the middle and chuck it up to him, and he's probably got a lot of walk-in touchdowns because of that. And Grantsville did a really great job containing him. 2 of those interceptions. One of them was a spectacular catch. Like, I think probably 99% of the time the Tigers throw that ball, that's a touchdown for Harvey. Jordan just made a phenomenal play that I don't know. He's a very talented kid, but asking somebody to do that twice is a stretch, and I don't, you know what I mean. So like, I don't know if he makes that same play 2 times in a row. That's how great the play was on that pass. So that really just flatlined any momentum that the Tigers had. And yeah, again, after seeing him play, he's very fast. So I think that they just chuck it and let him chase it, because the second interception was just an overthrown kind of misplaced pass by the quarterback. He just kind of overthrew him, and Jordan was able to track it down and pick it off. So great job on the secondary for that. Great job on the defense as well. There were several plays where they were like right there, man, for sacks, and they did a really good job. The defense did a phenomenal job. Held a team that was doing pretty good so far this season. They held them scoreless. So kudos to the defense in particular. They did a great job. Defensively for the. Hold on one sec. Yeah, Oh, just to finish up my thoughts on the offense for the Tigers. They appear to be dependent on the speed of that wide receiver in particular. Um, and I think if they can't figure out something else to kind of keep them moving, I think it might be problematic for them moving forward into the season. Defensively for the Tigers, they did a good job limiting an explosive offense in the Cowboys. Like I said, that they held them to 0 touchdowns. So defensively, they did a good job. They kept Atkinson out of the end zone, held him to under 100 yards, which I think is the first time in at least 3 games, if I'm not mistaken. So they did a good job containing that aspect of it and forcing Van Vliet into bad passes and or rush decisions. So they did a really good job doing that. Unfortunately, Grantsville had a really good kicker that day, so um, that was the kicking. The field goals was literally the turning point, and impressive performance again by number 4, Brent Nick Erbacher. Sorry, guys, I don't. I'm all congested. So let's look at some of the stats. Okay, so again, the score was the Cowboys 17, the Tigers 0. Passing wise, Ogden didn't put up any offensive stats, so we're just going to go over the offensive stats. Will just be Grantsville. So passing, number 1, Dallin Van Vliet, he was 17 for 45. Like I said, 37% on the night. Not his best performance. 247 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He did have 8 carries for 7 yards. Rushing attack was number 32, Jaden Atkinson, 14 carries for 72 yards and 0 touchdowns. And again, he did leave the game with an injury. Not really sure what that injury is, but from what I understand, he should be back. Receiving wise, your leading receiver was number 5, Jackson Jensen, who had a great catch, by the way. If you follow the socials, I put that up there during the game real time so you can see it. He had a phenomenal catch. But Jackson Jensen with 4 receptions for 70 yards. Number 20, Peyton Thornton, excuse me. He has 3 receptions for 60 yards. And then in third place for the receivers was number 8, Jordan Fossen, with 5 receptions for 51 yards. And again, he should have had 2 touchdowns, but they got called back because of penalties. So I'm sure he probably really wanted that. That would have been a monster game for that young man. I mean, he still had a great game, but it would have definitely, stat-wise, it would have been a huge game for that young man. So that's tough. Now on the defense, I do have stats for both teams on this, so we'll kind of cover both of it for your Grantsville Cowboys. Total tackles, the team had 41 total tackles, and Mason Butler led that with 7 total tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Meanwhile, for the Tigers, they had 62 total tackles as a team, led by Chaz Sanchez with 11 total tackles. In terms of sacks now, Grantsville had 2 as a team, and there was 2 players with half a sack, but number 17, Crew Warren, he had 1 sack to himself. As for the Tigers, they had 2 team sacks. Abney and Flint each had 1 sack in that. And for interceptions, Grantsville Cowboys had 3 as a team. Number 8, Jordan Fossen, had 2 of those for 70 yards, and number 28, Talon Butler, had 1 interception for a 2-yard return. For the Tigers, they had 1 interception as a team, and it was by Truman Vanderden with 1 interception. So that's a recap for the Cowboys-Tigers game. Like I said, I thought it was going to be a little bit different. I thought the passing attack was going to be a little bit stronger for the Tigers, but again, after seeing them play, they're definitely relying on that speed and just chuck it down the field. So hopefully they can get that sorted out and find some success. Because I don't think they're a bad team. I think Grantsville secondary just did a really good job, and I'd venture to say that there's probably not they probably haven't had to really face somebody with equal speed in the secondary. So I think that was a telltale sign for them. In the rushing game, it wasn't spectacular for them either. So they could definitely benefit from improving on that to really help out that passing attack, I think. But all in all, it was still a good game defensively. The difference was obviously field goals. So if Grantsville doesn't have a phenomenal performance by their kicker, this is a tough game. So I still think it was a good game. It was a really good game defensively in particular. And because Grantsville had some big plays, but again, once they hit the 30-yard line, it seemed like they just flatlined. So, um, good game by both those teams, honestly, in my opinion. Nothing to hang your head on. I don't think if you're the Tigers, because again, you did do a great job stopping a very powerful, explosive offense in the Cowboys. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that was Atkinson's first game under 100 yards in at least 3 games. I could be wrong though. I'd have to go back and look at that. But so and Van Vliet, yeah, he had 247 yards, but he threw the ball 45 times. So I mean, he only completed 17 of those. So in my opinion, the Tigers don't really have anything to hang their head on. I think they just need to kind of go back to the drawing board and look for players who can contribute offensively to balance out for Harvey, because I really think that's the key to success for the passing game of the Cowboys. Is they've got 3 receivers that are pretty much neck and neck stat wise, and then between uh, Jensen, Thornton, and Fossen, and then you throw in number 19 Tice Fuentes. Um, they have multiple options in the passing game, and I think if Ogden can kind of mimic that or find that, I think that they probably have a pretty decent chance too. So definitely nothing, in my opinion, to hang their head on. Great game for them. Good luck to them moving forward. All right, so moving on to the next game, the Tooele Buffaloes against the Jordan Beat Diggers. See, I'm with this congestion here, man. You guys need to think about these dang names. I'm just kidding. So let's get into the quick little recap I typed up. I don't know if this is any good, by the way, but Tooele moves to 4-3. The Tooele ground game is still impressive, as 46 of their 49 plays were running plays. As a team, they collected 426 yards on the ground, with over half of that coming from number 13, Von Gritzmaker. Maker or Mocker, I'm not really sure. He's already got over 1,500 yards on the season. The kid is having a phenomenal year. The defense had an outstanding game as well, putting the pressure on the Jordan offense, making it difficult for them to get into the end zone. It was an impressive day for the senior outside linebacker number 1, Ryan Durfee, as he ends the day with 8 total tackles, 1 interception, 1 sack, and 1 blocked field goal. Now, as far as Jordan's concerned, they fall to 1-6 on the season. They continue to struggle, now dropping to 1-6 on the season after showing some promise in the passing game last week. 3 interceptions kind of brought that to a crashing halt, and I'll get into that in just a second. The rushing attack wasn't there either, and made this a tough game for the team, right? They had 9 hurries from the Buffalo defense, which made it tough on the quarterback. Hopefully they're able to improve their offensive line protection and get some defensive line pressure moving forward. So good luck to them on that. But let's get into some stats. So Tooele wins that game 42-7 over Jordan High School. Passing game for Tooele, they have number 9 Gus Pater. He was 1 for 3, 29 yards and 0 touchdowns, excuse me. He also had 4 carries for 9 yards and 2 touchdowns. For Jordan, excuse me. For Jordan, number 3, Dylan Suther, not really sure, sorry about that, Suthar. He was 18 for 31, so not too bad for him, just a little bit over 50% there. 162 yards, 0 touchdowns, but he did have 3 interceptions, and that's crippling. On the rushing attack, again, you had number 13, Von Gritzmaker. Mocker. I'm going to say Mocker. We're going to go with Mocker until somebody corrects me. I don't know, because I don't know what it is. He had 12 carries for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns. And also, and I had to put 2 in here because, again, when you run 46 rushing plays, you're going to have some good stats for a lot of people. So number 12, Rosser, he had 17 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown. On the Jordan side of the ball, number 22, Alvalar, he had 14 carries for 45 yards, so nothing impressive there. But again, not a bad stat line either, right? So could be better for sure. They definitely would probably want it to be better, and I think they're going to need it to be better if they want to kind of balance that out and have some chance. So that's just my opinion, though. In the receiving section, though, for Tooele, obviously they only threw the ball 3 times, so there was 1 receiver, number 10, Arellano. He had 1 reception for 29 yards. But on the Jordan side of the ball, there was number 10, Osler, he had 5 receptions for 65 yards. Number 13, Griffith, 4 receptions for 44 yards. And number 22, Alvalar, he had 7 receptions for 37 yards. So I think for that running back, like, he had a really good game, right? He had 45 yards rushing and then 37 yards receiving. So they just couldn't find the end zone. That seems to be the biggest problem. So I don't know if that's just kudos to the Buffalo's red zone defense, or if they just couldn't get there. I'm not really sure what that is, but the potential's there, I think, and probably just a few small tweaks that they start finding that end zone. Obviously, the 3 interceptions hurt, and those could have possibly been touchdown plays too. So tough game offensively for them. Again, monster game on the ground for the Buffaloes. That seems to be their bread and butter. We say it every week, right? So moving on into some defensive stats. Total tackles for the Buffaloes. The team had 72, and they were led by number 22, Barrett, with 10 total tackles. And Jordan had 60 total tackles as a team, led by number 13, Griffith, with 15 total tackles. Sacks, Tooele had 4 sacks as a team by number 1, Durfee, number 43, Bowser, number 57, Phillips, and number 58, Dixon. Jordan had 0 sacks as a team. 0 sacks as a team. So, interceptions, Tooele had 3 interceptions. Number 1, Durfee, number 10, Arellano, and number 18, Simmons. Excuse me. They each had 1. And for Jordan, they had 1 as a team as well by number 33, Austin. Excuse me. I apologize. Excuse me. They had 1 interception as a team by number 33, Austin. He had 1 interception for 92 yards. So that's a recap of the Tooele versus Jordan game. That was in Jordan, at Jordan High School. So Tooele moves up to 4-3. They are... I'll get to what they are in a minute, but in their region, and Jordan falls to 1-6. So good luck to Jordan moving forward. Like I said, I mean, looking at those stats, they seem to be right there. Those 3 interceptions were obviously crippling. So hopefully they can start getting some points on the board and go into the rest of the season with some positive mindset leading in. You know what I mean? Because 1-6, I think that's tough to come back from, but hopefully you can end the season with some positive momentum and carry that over into next season for sure. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. If I'm being real though, looking at their JV team, because I've had the chance to see their JV team play twice, because I've been to the Stansbury one and the Tooele one as well. I didn't notice their quarterback. The kid they got playing quarterback's pretty good, but he's running for his life half the time. So I'm not seeing anybody that I'm like, yeah, this kid's going to be able to move forward and kind of take the reins and maybe change some stuff there. So hopefully they can get it figured out. Best of luck to those guys. All right. The last game we're going to talk about. As far as a recap, Stansbury Stallions against the Crimson Cliffs Mustangs. Okay, so I think I need to read the stats first and then go over my summary, because then it makes more sense. So we're just going to get into it. Stansbury loses that game 21-24, so the Mustangs end up with a win, which I thought was because of a field goal, but then I started looking at the scoring points and it definitely wasn't. But passing, the Stallions had number 4, Dearden. He was 10 for 18, 139 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions on the day. They also had what I'm guessing was a trick play by number 3, Rutzel. He was 1 for 1 for 52 yards. He is a receiver, so I'm assuming it was a double pass. Probably designed. Most likely, obviously designed, right? But for the Mustangs, their quarterback, number 19, Sherratt. Sorry. He was 13 for 25, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he also had 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So that puts him in a tough spot for sure. But they still ended up with a win. So rushing attack for the Stallions, number 2, Ferry. He had 20 carries for 69 yards, while the Mustangs, number 15, Christiansen had 22 carries for 144 yards and 1 touchdown. Great game for that young man. Receiving for your Stallions, you have number 1, Rich. He had 4 receptions for 81 yards. Number 13, Cephas, 3 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. And number 5, Rutzel, with 1 reception and 27 yards and a touchdown. For the Mustangs, number 4, Alofipo, he had 5 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I do apologize if I messed your name up because you had a heck of a game, young man. Great job to him. Number 18, Holt, he had 4 receptions for 24 yards. And number 8, Barrow, he had 2 receptions for 21 yards. Not a bad game by either one of those quarterbacks, minus the 2 interceptions and the fumbles for sure. For number 19, that puts your team in a tough spot. But again, they ended up coming up with a win. So, rushing attack, I think Stansbury would have liked a better game out of Ferry, but he didn't have a bad game either. 69 yards is nothing to beat yourself up about, right? But Christiansen, he had a heck of a game. 144 yards and a touchdown. So good job to those young men all the way around. Defensively, let's get into some of that. The total tackles for the Stallions, they had 46 collectively, led by number 23, Max Olson, with 10 total tackles, while the Mustangs had 72 total tackles, led by number 34, McKay Wright, and he was tied, so I put some more of the stats in there. He had 12 total tackles, 7 solo, and 1 tackle for loss. So basically, I used the tackle for loss as the deal breaker. But him, I can't remember the other kid's name. I apologize. I probably should have just added it in. There's no reason I couldn't. But there was 2 players with 12 total tackles, and that tackle for loss was the deal breaker, I think, if I remember right. Maybe it was the solos. I can't remember. But so good job to those defensive players. Outstanding performances there. In terms of sacks, the Stallions had 1 sack from number 6, Landon Wilson. He had 1 sack, and the Mustangs had 0 sacks. Interceptions, the Stallions had 2 interceptions as a team, one by number 1, Rich, and number 18, Binkley. They each had 1 interception. And the Mustangs had 0 interceptions. So a little bit of a summary for the Stallions. I think it was a very good passing game for the Stallions. No turnovers on their part. The defense came in clutch for the Stallions with 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries. Not a bad day on the ground for Ferry, but I do imagine Stansbury will be looking for a little bit more production moving forward. After a big win last week, this one has to be a gut-wrenching loss, especially since, from what I can tell, they executed well on both sides of the ball. So, tough loss, I'm sure, for them. Because nobody expected them to beat Park City, and they did a great job against Park City. So I think they were coming in with a lot of pride, as they should. So this was probably a tough one, and it all hinged on let's just get into the Mustangs summary real fast. They came into this game off of a pretty decent offensive passing attack, but 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles makes it difficult for sure. So the rushing attack was on point though, and that probably made up a lot of the difference. It was the safety in the 4th quarter. I might have read that wrong. Whatever. Pretty sure it was the 4th quarter. Yeah, with 6 minutes left in the 4th. It was the safety in the 4th quarter that set the Mustangs up for the chance to win. The Mustangs averaged 2 sacks per game and 14 on the season, but they didn't have any in this one. So that safety definitely took the pressure off the defense a little bit, I think, because they weren't really doing a great job of stopping the Stallions, and so that safety helped set them up in a position where they just needed 1 score to win it, and that's what ended up happening. So so the Mustangs averaged 2 sacks per game and 14 on the season, but they weren't able to get there on Friday, and that's according to Max Preps, by the way, those stats. So if that's wrong, I do apologize. So good job to the Stansbury O-line, but in the end, it was not enough, and the Mustangs leave with the W in this one. So congratulations to the Mustangs, and congratulations to the Stallions, man. You didn't have a bad game. A lot to build on, a lot to be proud of on that, I think, and you can carry that over, I think. So tough loss for sure, but you didn't have a bad game. So hopefully they're not beating themselves up too bad in that. So that's the that's the week 6 recap. Yeah, the Grantsville game, I really thought it was going to be a little bit more on the point side, but it was an all-out defensive game. So kudos to them. Let's get into the next game matchups. So, excuse me. All right, so the next game matchups for the Tooele County schools, right? Obviously, we got Tooele Buffaloes, Stansbury Stallions, and the Grantsville Cowboys. Obviously, I'm supporting the Grantsville Cowboys because that's where I'm at the moment, and I have some invested interest there. But Tooele is where I went to school, so I'm definitely rooting for them. In Stansbury, I got a nephew who's up there, so I'm definitely rooting for them as well. Now, if we all start playing each other, it might be a little bit different. But for right now, I'm rooting for all 3 of these schools, and I'm excited to be able to learn the stuff that I'm learning about their players. I've only got to see the JV teams really play for Tooele and Stansbury, and I don't see that changing at the moment. But it's definitely interesting to see, right? So we'll just get into the first game I got on it here is for Tooele. Okay, so Tooele will be at home. They're 4-3 on the season, 3-0 in region, and they're currently in second place in that region. They'll be going against the Murray Spartans, who are also 4-3, but they're 2-1 in region, so they're currently sitting at 4th. And this is a region game for both these teams, I believe. Points wise, Tooele has scored 224 points on the season, and Murray is sitting at 223 points on the season, so pretty even there. Passing yards, Tooele is only sitting at 474 yards and 5 touchdowns because, again, they run the ball almost all the time. The Spartans, however, are sitting at 1,152 yards and 10 touchdowns on the season. Interceptions, Tooele has thrown 4 of them, and Murray has thrown 5. Rushing attack, it's definitely leaning towards the Buffaloes in this one. They've got 2,283 yards and 23 touchdowns on the ground, while the Spartans have 1,104 yards and 14 touchdowns. Defensively, also pretty close. 26 tackles for loss from the Buffaloes, while the Spartans are holding on to 39 tackles for loss on the season so far. The defensive sacks for the Buffaloes, they have 12 on the season, while the Spartans have 16. Interceptions, Tooele takes that one with 9 interceptions on the season, and the Spartans are really right there on their heels with 8 on the season. So, pretty evenly matched teams. I mean, obviously the rushing yards are different. The passing yards are different, but that's just because, obviously, the Spartans appear to be more balanced. So, I don't know. Let's kind of get into this. Shoot, I skipped this part, so let me backtrack real fast. My offensive player to watch for the Buffaloes is number 9, the quarterback, Gus Pater. He's 23 for 43, 474 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions on the season. The offensive player to watch for the Spartans is wide receiver number 4, Evan Talbot. He's 19 receptions, 364 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Defensive player to watch for the Buffaloes, I've got the outside linebacker, number 12, Britton Rosser, and I'll explain why in just a second. 30 total tackles, 11 solo, 1 interception, and 2 passes deflected. For the Spartans, I've got linebacker number 10, Josh Zulu. He's got 70 total tackles on the season, 24 solo, 6 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 8 quarterback hurries. All right, so in summary, Tooele looks to hold on to that second spot against an evenly matched Spartans team. We know the run is their go-to, but I think they will be facing a team that will make that a challenge for them. So for that, I am watching the quarterback, Pater, to see if he can get the team going, as I don't see the domination on the ground in this one. I think they're still going to have plenty of yards, but I don't know that they're going to get to the end zone as much as they're accustomed to. And I think they're gonna fall on Pater to have to make some throws. So I can't remember the game. Maybe it was against Hillcrest or Cottonwood. But Gus Pater had a really good game in that one. It was arguably his best game of the season. He was 8 for 8, like 170 yards, I think, roughly, and a couple touchdowns. So I think it's there. And I think he's going to need a game like that against the Spartans. I don't think the run game alone is going to be enough for Tooele to come out on top in this one. So I'm really looking to watch him to see if he's going to be able to have a repeat performance like that, and maybe they start trusting him a little bit more. I don't know. Because I honestly haven't seen the kid play, so I'm not really. And they don't have enough stats for me to make a just judgment, because they run the ball so much. So, but I think the Spartans defense is going to make this tough on them running the ball. So I'm really looking to watch him to see what he can do. As for the defense, I looked at roster because from what I was able to see on the little recap of the last week game, he was playing the safety spot. And I really think that's where the Huskies are going to try to take advantage of this Buffalo defense. So I'm watching him. If the Huskies want to take advantage, I think that's where it's going to be. So best of luck to him, because if I was going against Tooele based off the stats that I've been able to see, I'm airing it out, assuming obviously I've got a quarterback and receivers who can do it. And looking at the stats for the Spartans, just under 1,200 yards passing on the season and 10 touchdowns. It may not be their go-to, but they seem to be pretty balanced. So the Huskies are fourth in 4A Region 10, and they're looking to improve on that, and I think they have a solid chance to do so. They appear to be balanced on offense and defense, and they can focus on stopping the run because we know Tooele rushes it almost every single time. I think that Talbot, the receiver, he can have a day, I think, against Tooele, and I picked him in particular because he had pretty comparable yards to other receivers for the Spartans, but it was the receptions. He doesn't have a lot of receptions, so that tells me that he's somebody that maybe can break free if you've got a weak secondary. So that's why I was looking at roster. I think he's gonna have to really be floating around, being a ball hawk to try to take care of his defense, because like again, if I'm the Spartans, I'm looking to air it out like Timpanogos did against them. So that's just my opinion, but that's assuming again that the passing attack is decent for the Spartans. I thought the one for the Tigers was better, but then after seeing them play, I kind of understood why. And for all I know, maybe that's something similar for the Huskies. Right, so we'll see. But that's who I'm watching for the wide receiver is number 4, Evan Talbot. I think he's going to have the best chance. And then defensively, Zulu, number 10, the linebacker, I think he's going to have the reason I got him watching is because he leads our team in total tackles, but I think he's going to be the one most likely to have to try to stop that run. And Gritzmacher's not easy to bring down. So I think he's going to have to definitely have a big game to be able to force Tooele's quarterback to have to make plays. So if he can do his job, and the rest of the defense too, obviously, right, can do their job to kind of stomp out a little bit of that Buffalo rushing game, they're probably gonna be all right. So Tooele, in my opinion, hey, get Gus ready, because I think you're going to be facing a team that's pretty decent against the run. They've got 39 tackles for loss, so they're getting in the backfield. They got 16 sacks on the season. They're definitely getting in the backfield, and they're sitting at 8 interceptions. So I don't know. In my opinion, Tooele, get your rushing game going. So that's my matchup for Tooele against Murray. I don't really want to get into predictions because I don't want people. You know what? We'll see here. I think the Spartans take this one, unless, like I said, the Buffaloes can get their passing game involved like they have in the past. Then I've got the Buffaloes because their rushing attack is just insane. But if that's all they do is rush, I think the Spartans take this one. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Best of luck to both those two schools. All right, Stansbury against Hillcrest Huskies. Excuse me, sorry. So Stansbury will be away for this game. They're 4-3. They're 3-0 in region as well, and they're currently sitting right above Tooele at first place. They're going against the Hillcrest Huskies, who will be the home team. They're 0-6 on the season, 0-3 in region, currently 6th place. Points-wise, the Stallions have 179 points, while the Huskies have 86. Passing, the Stallions have 1,183 yards and 11 touchdowns, while the Huskies have 856 yards and seven touchdowns. Interceptions, the Stallions have 5 interceptions, while the Huskies have 4. Rushing wise, the Stallions are sitting at 1,275 yards and 14 touchdowns, while the Huskies have 1,066 yards and 5 touchdowns. Tackles for loss, defense. The Stallions have 9 tackles for loss on the season, while the Huskies have 44. Hopefully I didn't typo that. I feel like I need to check this right now to make sure I didn't typo that, because that's a lot. It might have been 4. Probably 4. Gosh dang it. I don't wanna mess up what I got going on here. But let's see. Let's see if I can. You know what? No, because 44 seems wrong to me. So we're gonna look this up real quick. Sorry guys. I spent all day getting my stats together so I didn't mess it up, and I think I might have typoed this one. So who was it? Hillcrest Huskies. All right. I might have messed that one up. That's insane to me. Oh boy. There we go. 44 just doesn't sound right. That's a lot for a team that's 0-6. That's if they weren't 0-6, I might have.
Prime Day Deal Days is coming October 8th and 9th with
Sorry guys. Stupid ads on Max Preps. They're out of control, but I don't know of a better place to get stats. So if somebody's got one, please let me know. All right, let's go to team stats here. Defense. All right, the Huskies have 44 tackles for loss. So maybe I typoed the Tooele one. Oops. See, this is the problem. This is the problem. All right, Tooele Buffaloes. Try to get this up before it kicks on another commercial. Stats, team stats, defense. 26. What did I say? I'm looking at the wrong school anyways. Tooele. I was looking at Tooele. Stansbury. Goodness gracious. I'm sorry guys. I'm not 100% right now. I've been sick for like a week now. I'm pretty sure I'm over it, but it's still lingering, so I do apologize. Give me 1 second. I don't want to mess this up. You know, these kids work hard, and they don't need some baboon like me out here messing things up because of typos, right? So, which I've probably already messed up enough. Team stats, defense. Okay, so the Stallions have 9 tackles for loss. So, I guess I didn't mess it up. All that just to find out I didn't mess it up. All right, so where were we? Tackles for loss. The Stallions have 9, while the Hillcrest Huskies have 44. Sacks. The Stallions have 7 sacks on the season. The Huskies have 1. Interceptions. Stallions have 11. The Huskies have 5. My offensive player to watch for the... let's go to these summaries first. We'll try this backwards. We'll see what works best. Stansbury looks to continue to hold on to that first place spot against the Huskies, who are not having a good season thus far. I think it will be a big game for running back Tyson, I believe, Ferry, as they will probably run the ball. They'll probably run the ball more because I'm assuming they're going to get up on the scoreboard, and they're just going to start running the ball a little bit more than throwing it. So I look to see him have a big game, and I'm also looking for number 24, Carter Peterson, because I'm pretty sure he's their second string. I'm looking for him to probably have some second half carries for sure, so he could have a big game for himself. But overall, I'm looking at Ferry to have a pretty big game on the ground. I think Wilson, the outside linebacker for the Stallions, he's going to have a chance to increase his sack total on the season because the Huskies O-line appears to be struggling pretty bad. As for the Huskies, they're hoping to get a positive home win and are definitely the underdog right now in this game. So against the Stallions. So the Stallions really do appear to be figuring out kind of who they are as an offense, I think, this year. They've had pretty good games back to back, pretty consistent games back to back at that. So I think they're kind of figuring out who they are. all accounts and purposes, they probably should have won last week. But any given Friday, I guess, for these guys. I love Any Given Sunday. That's a great movie, by the way. But anyways, sorry. Moving on. The Huskies, like I said, they're kind of the underdogs, so they'll need to have a good defensive game, I think, to overshadow their lack of offensive success. But for a team that's let opponents score an average of 44 points per game, I don't know if they're going to get it. That's a tall order. I don't know if they're going to get that against the Stallions. Their defense really needs to step up and dig deep, I think, if they want to have a chance to win this game. Because you can't let up an average of 44 points a game and expect to be successful on the season, which is kind of crazy because looking at their stats, they're not terrible stat lines. I mean, they're pretty comparable to, minus the tackles for loss. Like the Huskies have way more tackles for loss. There's so much, in fact, that I thought I typoed that. You know what I mean? So stat-wise, comparably, they're not looking too much different. They just can't find the dang end zone, right? But either way, if their defense is giving up 44 points a game, that's a tall order, right? So I don't know if they're going to get there. For the Huskies, I'm looking at their running back, Houston, to have an impact in hopes that it takes some of the pressure off the quarterback. I'll get into his stats, but he had a pretty decent game earlier in the season. I think he's going to need to repeat that. And that gives them a fighting chance, in my opinion, assuming the defense steps up and starts playing some dang defense, because 44 points per game, that's tough, right? But you got 44 tackles for loss. So is it the secondary? That's what I'm starting to think, right? So, I mean, I guess, Dearden could have a pretty good game too, but I just think because of the score, they're gonna focus more on the running game. That's why he's not my offensive player to watch, but we'll see. And then Ashby, the linebacker for the Huskies, he's going to probably have to carry that defense. He's going to have to be that spark. I think he's their leading tackler. So I think he's going to have to motivate the troops, man, and just get them going. We'll see. So again, offensive player to watch for the Stallions. I've got number 2, the running back. Ferry, he's got 94 carries on the season, 542 yards and 4 touchdowns. The offensive player to watch for the Huskies, I've got running back number 15, Kevon Houston, 51 carries, 333 yards on the season, and 1 touchdown. Again, he's not standing out there on the stat line, but looking at one of his previous games, I think he's going to definitely need to be a big impact for them to actually have success in this game. Defensive players to watch for the Stallions, I got the outside linebacker number 6, Wilson. He's got 31 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks on the season. Again, I really think he's going to have an opportunity to increase that sack total in this game if he wants it. I think it's going to be there. For the Huskies, the defensive player to watch, I've got the middle linebacker number 26, Ashby. He's got 83 total tackles on the season and 8 tackles for loss. So it's going to be up to him to have to stop that run game if they want him to beat him in the air. But from the looks of it, based off tackles for loss, I'm assuming the secondary is probably the problem, so maybe he should drop back into coverage and go get some interceptions. I don't really know. We'll have to see. I do feel like, just looking at the stats, I do feel like this game could be kind of like a didn't see it coming game, right? And maybe the Huskies pull one out. But again, they're 0-3 in region, they're 6th, they're 0-6 in record. They just can't seem to find the end zone. I don't see it really happening. And again, your defense letting up an average of 44 points a game. That's a tall order. But maybe, just maybe, if the Stallions are underestimating them too much, maybe they get slapped in the mouth a little bit. I don't know. So, be interesting to see. All right, and for the final game I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about this one last because I think this is going to be I think this has the potential to be a really good game, or it's going to be an extremely eye-opening game. I think it goes either direction. So, the Grantsville Cowboys, who are 6-1, I didn't write down their region. Gosh dang it. That's the beauty of having a better computer now. All right. Grantsville. I should know this too. I don't. My mind is not fully there. Sorry, guys. All right, stats. No, we want schedule. Sorry, schedule. All right, so they're 2-0 in region. They're currently second. That's right. Okay. And they're going against Morgan, who is 2-0 in region as well, and they're currently first. Okay. I'm sorry. All right, so the last game we're going to talk about, the Grantsville Cowboys against the Morgan Trojans. This will be a home game for the Morgan Trojans. Grantsville is 6-1 coming into this game, 2-0 in region, currently in second place, right behind Morgan, who is 7-0, 2-0 in region, currently sitting in first place. Points-wise, this is why I say it could be an eye-opening experience, right? The Cowboys have 213 points on the season, while the Trojans have 321 points on the season. Passing, the Cowboys have 1,426 yards and 17 touchdowns, while the Trojans have 1,726 yards and 20 touchdowns. So pretty comparable there. Passing interceptions, the Cowboys have 5 on the season, while the Trojans have 7. So I feel like that's a pretty comparable stat line. Rushing, Grantsville sitting at 1,188 yards and 12 touchdowns, while the Trojans are sitting at 1,068 yards and 22 touchdowns. So more touchdowns with less yards, but still pretty comparable. Man, those offenses, stat-wise, just looking at that, I think are pretty on par. Defensively, the Cowboys have 41 tackles for loss, while the Trojans have 36. The Cowboys have 20 sacks on the season, and the Trojans have 15. Yeah. For whatever reason, I thought they were called something other than the Trojans. My bad. Sorry about that. Interceptions, Grantsville has 8 on the season, while Morgan has 14 on the season. Yeah, that's pretty comparable in my opinion, and that's why I say I feel like this game could go either direction. I think it could be a really good kind of back-and-back game, or maybe it is more like the Grantsville versus Ogden one, just a defensive showdown, because again, 41 tackles for loss, 36 for the Trojans, 20 sacks for the Cowboys, 15 for the Trojans, interceptions 8 and 14, right? So pretty good defenses, and that could make it really tough on both the offenses that are also very comparable. So it may come down to who's the better quarterback. It may come down to who's the better running back. Just to see who's going to get that score on the board to finish it out. Obviously, we know that the Grantsville kicker's pretty good. I should have looked that up. I didn't. I don't know about the Trojans kicker. Maybe it comes down to that. I don't really know. Or maybe the game plan is just very, very solid, and one team blows the other one out of the water. I don't really know. This is going to be a good game, in my opinion. And so I've got the offensive line as my offensive player to watch. And the reason I say that, Morgan's defense has 14 interceptions on the season. So I think it's critical that the rushing game for the Cowboys is good, and that they have protection for Van Vliet so that he can make good throws that aren't, because he had a pretty rough game. He was 37% in his last game, so that's why I've got the offensive line as its whole as my offensive player to watch, because I think they're going to have a fantastic day in order to open up those holes for the rushing game and give Van Vliet enough time to make good decisions and good throws. I think it's going to come down to that. I really do. Porter Davis is my defensive player to watch, because he has done a great job getting pressure in the backfield, and he's been like right there. I mean, like a hand's length away from probably a couple sacks. So I really think he's going to have to get there this time. I think if he can do that, it's gonna make it a lot easier on the rest of the defense to for pass coverage and run stopping and things like that. So if he can get some added pressure on that quarterback. And again, I think he's been right there, man. He hasn't been reaching the stat totals, right? But he's watching him play. I think he's going to have to do it, because I think they're going to game plan against Fossen for sure. After the game he had against Ogden with the 2 interceptions, the 2 touchdowns that should have been called back, or they shouldn't have. That were called back. But if I'm the offense, I'm looking at Fossen, I'm looking at Bunderson, and I'm trying to game plan around that, because those two have done phenomenal in the secondary, and the linebackers and the line have also been getting there as well, right? But looking at their passing attack, I think that they're going to try to stray away from that, and so I think that's where somebody like Porter Davis, I think, can really kind of come into it if he can get there. Um, my offensive player to watch for the Trojans is a wide receiver, Boston Zach, with the season that Gilson, another receiver for the Trojans, is having. I think Grantsville is obviously going to probably game plan for him, and this might lead to some opportunities. I think for Zach, the receiver. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on him, see if he can break away. Because again, like I said, if I'm the Trojans, after watching what Grantsville did against Ogden, I'm gonna look to the other side and hope. And it looks like he might be a solid person who's going to pick some of that up. So. Defensively for the Cowboys, your other secondary, hopefully they're on par and they're ready to go. And then again, getting that pressure on the quarterback, I think will really help. Obviously, right? Like everybody knows that, but just getting it out there and saying it, manifest it. You know what I mean? Defensive player to watch for the Trojans I've got is Tate Still. Like I said, I think with the rushing attack, I think the rushing attack will need to be on point for Grantsville. So if Still's able to get in the backfield, then this could cause some serious problems for Grantsville, for the Grantsville offense, and force them to have to throw it into a ball hawk of a secondary. I mean, they've got 14 interceptions on the season, so it's obviously Morgan's best option is to emphasize run stopping and make Van Vliet beat you, because he didn't, he had 246 yards last week, but he did not have a very impressive completion percentage, right? So has he in the past? Sure, absolutely. He's definitely capable of it. I mean, the kid's a stud. But when it's bad, it's bad. And if I'm the Trojans, I'm trying to make him beat me. I'm not trying to let Atkinson beat me. You know what I mean? So that's just my opinion on it. So I see them really emphasizing the run stop and making Van Vliet beat them in the passing attack. So again, offensive players to watch for the Grantsville Cowboys. I've got the entire offensive line. So that's number 59, Kal-El Fields, number 58, Jax Allred, number 58, Wyatt Lee, number 53, Trayton Kinsman, and number 71, Hunter Critchlow. I'm looking for all of those guys to have a big game, because I think it's going to hinge on them. They're going to have a good game on the offensive line. Excuse me. As for the Trojans, the offensive player to watch, I've got number 14, Boston Zach. He's got 14 receptions on the season, 343 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Defensive player to watch, like I said, number 87, Porter Davis, 34 total tackles, 26 solo. I feel like he's got some sacks in there. They just weren't on max preps. So, if anybody's got that stat line, please reach out to me. I'd like to have that. But like I said, watching him play, he's been right there. So I think if he can get there, he's going to be a huge impact on that defense if he can get there, because I'm telling you, he's right there. If you've watched him play, he's right there. He's pretty aggressive coming off. So that's my defensive player to watch for the Cowboys. As for the Trojans, I've got number 4, Steele. He's got 33 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 2 fumble recoveries. So offensively, Grantsville's going to want to keep him out of the backfield, but he's probably going to get there anyways. He appears to be a pretty dang good player. So that's the matchup. I'm looking forward to it. Trojans are 7-0, Grantsville 6-1. Both of them are 2-0 in region. This is a very telltale game for the remainder of the season. And yeah, it's a big game in my opinion. It's a big game, and I think it's got potential to be a really good game. I really do. Very defensively minded, I think, and so it's just going to be which offense is more crisp, in my opinion. I think that's what it's going to come down to. But I know it'll help if that offensive line for Grantsville can be on par and take care of business. So that's the matchups for, what are we, week 8, right? Yeah, week 8. That's the Week 8 matchups for Tooele County schools, Grantsville, Tooele, and Stansbury. So good luck to all three of those teams. Good luck to all those players. And yeah, I don't know. I do have the audio only going up on Podbean if you want to just listen to it. I'll get those links out on the Instagram account so everybody can have those as well. So other than that, get out there. If you're watching this, you stumble across this, you don't live here, that's fine. Get out there, support your local athletes, your local teams. These kids, they work their butts off, and they appreciate it more than you know. So there's nothing worse than when we go to places and there's just no crowd. You feel for those kids. You really do. At least I do. And especially if they're a struggling program, that's when they need you more. So, when everybody's great when it's high and mighty. But when you're struggling, that's where you need the support more. So if you're watching this, I don't care how bad the team's doing. Get out there and support them. You ain't doing nothing else on a Friday anyway. Stop pretending like you are. So it's like $7 to get in there. You spend more than that on fatty cakes. All right. So get out there, support your dang local kids. All right. They need it. And if you want to make communities better, we need them to be better. Right. So let's encourage it. Let's get out there and support them. Hats off to all the coaches who get out there and volunteer their time to ensure the success of these players and these kids. Don't let outside crap talking get you. Obviously, we've got opinions too, right? But at the end of the day, we all support you. And though sometimes maybe we see things or don't agree with things, it's irrelevant. All right, well, it is what it is. So thank you to you for doing what you do. Everybody else, get out there, support these kids. If you're an athlete and you're watching this, keep doing great things. If you want to send me some of your own footage that you might have, I'll gladly give you a shout out. I don't make any money off this. At the moment, there's no plans to. This is literally just me trying to show some love and get everybody as much attention as I can with whatever platform I can create. So, and it's a hobby thing. I just enjoy doing it. So, if you want to send me some of your stuff, I'm more than willing to give you a shout out. Even if you're not with any of these schools that I'm talking about, you just stumbled across this, hey, let me know. I don't know that I'll be able to give you the same amount of attention and coverage because I do have a job sometimes, but I will gladly send it out. So if you want to send me some of your own stuff, by all means, please do so. I will gladly give you a shout out. Other than that, take care of yourselves, guys, and get out there and support these teams. Good luck to all three of those schools.